Hi, this is Rachel back again for episode 5 of the Yarn Equals Joy podcast. Happy New Year. Here is sort of all the details. This is Yarn Equals Joy, as I said. We are miraculously on episode 5. I am the creator behind Joan Mag Bags on Etsy, where there are some project bags still to find, although I haven't put anything in there in a while. Today's January 5th, 2019. I'm Rachel Book Girl on Rav, or Rachel Book Girl on Instagram, and Rachel on Ravelry. And thank you for coming and sitting with me for a little while you knit or just putter or do whatever you do. And I'm just going to take this opportunity to say I know there aren't a lot of people watching, so I really do appreciate those of you who do, and I would really appreciate if you would subscribe or like or do something just to let me know you're out there. Write a comment. I do that a lot when I watch podcasts because I do want people to know how much I appreciate just seeing what they're doing and hearing about their projects. So hopefully you can let me know that you're watching as well. So I'm in a different spot. It looks like the lighting is kind of weird, but I'm just going to go with it for today and see what it's like. This is my office slash one of the rooms that is a guest room in the house, and this way I'm sitting up on the bed slash couch as opposed to crouching on the floor in front of my yarn cabinet. So we'll just see how this goes. So hopefully I remembered to bring my notes, and I will look at them from time to time just so I can kind of stay a little bit on track. So unfortunately, or fortunately, however you choose to look at it, the 3 FOs since last time have all been gifted, as is normal for this season. It is there was the sockhead hat, which I gave to my son. I'm not sure I ever showed that on here. It was kind of an old whip that I'd put down for a really long time, and then I was going out to visit him in California and wanted to bring that. And I'm happy to report that he is enjoying it and wearing it. I made the wavy legs hat for my nephew. That was also gifted in California. And then my second Amara shawl went to my aunt for her birthday, which is the day after Christmas. So lots of gifts given, and lots of new projects on the needles. So I will get started with those. The first, which is in my gorgeous buku bag, which is really one of my favorites. And actually I traveled with this as my tote on the plane, and it was perfect. So I think it's a great size for that. So as I showed you, I think last time, I had the Drachenfels pattern by Melanie Berg. It's a very stripy sport weight shawl that I'm making out of Quince & Co. Chickadee in 3 colors. There's this black, which is crow, this heathered gray, and then this light orangey color, which is called apricot. I started this, it has this sort of neat, sorry, it's all a mess, this kind of neat sort of slip stitch pattern at the beginning, and then it goes into the stripes with the black and the gray with one apricot stripe in between, and then the apricot and the gray, and now I'm doing a section with just the apricot. And I think, as you can see, it's going to be a really nice size. I like really big shawls, and it's also really squishy because it's sport weight. My only issue with this is that I got a little worried when I started working on the stripes that maybe this was going to look a little Halloween-y, and I'm not a Halloween person. It's not my holiday. I don't like orange and black together particularly. I fell in love with this apricot color. It's a really soft orange. And I think because of that, it doesn't really read as Halloween, I'm hoping, and just will read kind of fallish and wintry and cozy and lovely. But it is really squishy and really fun. And I've made, as you can see, a ton of progress. That was my travel knitting, not a huge sock knitter, and it was really small when I started, obviously. So it was fine for traveling, and I got a lot done. My next whip, which is also a new cast on, I'm a little on the fence about. This is a pattern that I had seen and sort of thought was really, really gorgeous. It's called Vintage Damask. Sorry for the dog noises. It's by Annie Lupton of Boho Chic Fiber Company. And as you can see, there are two samples. It's a relatively small cowl, which I like. And it's just kind of this really sweet, vintagey, as it's called, you know, fleur-de-lis, I think is what you call that scroll. The problem is I'm not enjoying working on it as much as I would hope because the color work is not as fun as other things I've worked on. So other projects I've worked on, there were more dramatic uses of color changing, and so you saw something sort of right away that just popped out at you and seemed really cool. It was geometric or something. And also it meant that there was less space between colors, so you didn't really worry all the time about catching floats. I do know how to catch floats, I have done it, but I've never had a project where I've had to do it as often, and this project is turning out to be that. I only have a little bit of it done, but right now it's very subtle, and that, you know, is maybe partly due to my color choices and also due to the fact that there are these tiny little like one stitch color things which don't really show up very well. So jury's still out on that. I'm using this gorgeous color, which is kind of like light tans and creams and a lot of like a neon pink and then a little bit that you probably won't be able to see but speckled of orange. And that is, no, that's Lemonade Shop in their Mighty DK and Willow. It's a gorgeous color. I mean, really, really gorgeous, from Stash. And the pink is Hibiscus from Fuse Fiber Studio, another of my favorite dyers on their Merino DK base. And I don't know if you can tell with this either, but there's a lot of sort of white that shows through with this, so it really has a really cool tonal look. And you know, I think I'll probably do this and put it away for next year for a gift for someone's birthday or something. It looks really small because I have it on these 16-inch needles, but I'm pretty sure that once it's off the needles and blocked, it will be a normal cowl size or a normal small cowl size. So again, not 100% thrilled with that. You know, we'll see. It may end up being something that gets scrapped, but I'm gonna try to stick in there because I really love the design, and I feel like if I get far enough, maybe once the design is more evident, I'll like it more. So that's that. And then my third whip and project is something that I'm kind of surprised that I'm casting on. So it is part of Knit Vent by Helen Stewart, Curious Handmade, and I don't know that I've ever done any of her designs, but I've only heard great things about how easy they are to follow, how broken down they are in 2 steps. And so I signed up for Knit Vent and I got all those patterns, and the Dust of Snow shawl sort of jumped out at me because it was technically a wrap, so more of a rectangle, which I actually like. And I actually had made before, which I meant to bring in, but I forgot, so maybe I'll show it another time. A design that I made up when I was just wanting to play with color, and I sort of marled all these different fingering weights held double into a really squishy, yummy seed stitch wrap. And that rectangular wrap, I get a lot of wear out of. In fact, I took it to California and it was perfect over the holidays. So I thought, okay, so maybe another wrap. I didn't really do an advent calendar this year. I've never done one, but I did exchange with a friend, sort of a mini Hanukkah type advent. So we did like 7 nights, then one big night for the 8 nights of Hanukkah. And so I thought about maybe using that, but then I wasn't sure how many, there weren't that many minis, and I do have minis and I also have scraps. So I thought, well, I'll just use scraps and then I'll pull a few other colors that I like. The trick was that I had 3 balls of this this fuchsia pink Rowan Kid Silk Haze mohair, and I thought, well, I think I had 4, and this calls for 4, but I'm pretty sure I used part of one, part of one for a hat pattern, and then I got so frustrated with knitting with the mohair and it got all tangled and I gave it up. So I ended up with 3 full things, and I'm almost at the end of the first full skein. I just ordered another one once I decided that I really was going to go ahead with this project and keep going. I have issues with mohair. I like the way it looks. My bird of a feather shawl is stalled. I really want that shawl. I love the way the finished shawl looks when I've seen other people's, but I do not enjoy knitting with the mohair on its own. I will say this project, knitting with the mohair with a fingering weight companion yarn, is 1,000 times better, easier for me to navigate, not as frustrating, not as fiddly, and I'm really liking it. I have other issues with this. I'm really just doing one of the things which I love to do, which is just sort of playing with colors. Let me see if I can find the right side. So it's this shifting rectangle. Looks like a, I don't know what you call this shape exactly. And I think I did make an error near the beginning, and there's a bit of a little dip, but I'm pretty sure that that will be able to be blocked out. So I'm not too worried about that. Also, this is going to be for me, and so if it has a little dip at a corner, I don't think anyone's going to notice, but I think I can block that out. But as you see with this really bright mohair, and it's not really showing totally true here, but the different colors really work up very differently and interestingly, and I think this is going to be really a flattering color for my coloring and something that I will get a lot of wear out of. But I can also say it just feels incredibly amazing with the mohair and the fingering. And at first I didn't like sort of the fabric that it was creating. I thought it was, the needles I think are a size 7, and I thought it was way too loosey-goosey, but I can say now, obviously, trust the pattern writer, trust the designer. It really is a lot of fun, and I'm really, not only am I enjoying working on it, but I'm enjoying sort of finding colors to add to it, and I'm excited about the finished product too. So I think that's really cool. Okay, so I do have a little bit of, so that was sort of joy in the works, right? And then I have some stashing the joy, a little bit. Okay, so I have a couple books. I haven't really looked through them enough to be able to review them, but as many of you are experiencing, January is a time of reflection and new beginnings. And one of the things is to look at our crafting and try to decide, you know, has it overcome everything else in terms of storage of our stash and messiness and all of that, and that's something that I struggle with as well. So This is a book by Faye Wolf. It's called New Order, a Decluttering Handbook for Creative Folks. And it has some interesting things, including a big section on sort of where to take things to donate or things to sell. And I think that's sort of one of the things that I always struggle with. If I have these creative supplies, where can I bring them? And I don't know if this is going to really solve that for me, but it has some interesting stuff in it about organizing. So it may or may not be useful. If I find anything really great in it, I will share it with you at a future post. Another book I ordered that I've not looked at yet was also recommended on another or several other podcasts. It's the New Knitting Dictionary by Kate Atherley. It's, as it says, it is literally a dictionary. So under K, you find knit to together, and then it sends you to decreases. Or you find kettle dyed, and it sends you to yarn attributes, color. Or you see KFB, and it sends you to C increases. So I think for someone who's new to knitting and they're talking about things on podcasts like spit splicing or magic loop that you don't really know what they're talking about, this would be a really easy, fun thing to have. I'm not that new and I know a lot, but there's tons of stuff that I don't know, and it's always nice to have another resource. So that's the Knitter's Dictionary, Kate Atherley. When I watched podcasts, one of the things that always amazed me was that people who dyed yarn bought hand-dyed yarn from other people, and people who sewed bags bought hand-sewn bags from other people. But I totally get it. It's what we love. It's what we're into, and we want to see what else is out there and to experience it, and it's very, very cool to do that. And then the other piece of it is, as a small business owner, and mine is teeny tiny, very, very small, we want to support other people who are doing that. So one of the bag makers who you see everywhere is Bags by Awesome Granny, who also happens to be in Texas, and she ran a sale recently with this very cool bag. And the print was Dysfunctional Families, which I've seen other people have, but I teach a class on dysfunctional family lit, so this was just right up my alley, and I was excited that she had these available for sale, and I'm excited. I don't think I have had any of her bags before, so I'm excited to have this, and it's a really nice size, so I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so there's one other purchase, and I have mixed feelings about it. I had ordered yarn from Wool & Boone probably at the end of November, and I got a shipping notice, I think like the 11th of December. And there's nothing wrong with that turnaround. You know, I understand that yarn needs to be dyed or whatever, that's fine. But then it never came, and I would check on the link, the tracking link, and it would still say the same thing, that it was a shipping label was made, but that's as far as it got. And when I reached out, I did not get a response to my first email. I sent a message on Instagram that was never responded to. I did finally get an email which looked like maybe a sort of, you know, automatic response or something, that to my second email that explained, you know, we got everything shipped before we went away on vacation and you should get it soon or something like that. But it seemed like maybe it was to anyone who sent a query. I don't know. So I don't think I will be ordering. There's so many places to order from. I probably won't order from them again. Partly because customer service is really important to me. So if I'm expecting something because a shipping label is created, I don't think it should take, you know, another 10 days or 15 days for that thing to be mailed. And if there is some issue where, you know, the shipping notification went out and then there was an error, the products weren't ready or whatever, I feel like I should be notified. Yarn is really expensive. It's not cheap. And I know a lot of work goes into it, and I am willing to pay those prices, but I feel like we need to have really good communication, so that if someone is curious about when something is coming, there should be a response within 24 to 48 hours. You know, I'm a teacher. I get emails from students and parents. You know, it wouldn't occur to me to wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to answer someone, or to not answer at all. So having said that, I also have mixed feelings about the yarn. I got 4 skeins. This skein is really not my normal colors, so all I can imagine is that it looked really different on the in the picture, because this is not something I would have picked out. And again, I've heard other podcasters talk about this. It happens. It's not necessarily anyone's fault. Things look different on camera, but it's pretty. It's just not something I would have chosen if I was standing in front of someone's booth. This is called Robin Sparkles. It's their Boone Classic 4-ply fingering. The other 4-ply fingering is much more up my alley, and I can see why I picked it. It's pinks and oranges. It's called Heart Punch, and that I probably would have picked if I was standing right in front of someone's booth. So that I love. I ordered 2 DK skeins for hats, basically, or mitts. This is called Hawkins, Indiana. It's their DK weight, and it's got all sorts of really great colors. I think it could be a hat for either gender, which is nice because I have 2 sons and 1 daughter. And then the 4th skein is, again, it's fine. It's just not sort of wow. And I think if I had ordered it, I probably thought it looked different in the picture. And this is called Busy. And it has sort of a cream base with pinks. And it's pretty and will make a lovely hat or mitts or something like that. So it will be fine, but just not like crazy amazing. So I want to show one sort of tool that I found recently that I think is really neat, that maybe you will also enjoy using if you haven't discovered it already. And then I want to talk about other kinds of joy, which I haven't really done yet, but I would like to. I've had a lot of nice quiet days off with no school because of the holidays. We go back Monday. Yay! Maybe not yay, but yay. Excuse me. I had a bit of a cold too this whole time. So the tool is this lovely pocket, and I ordered it from Amazon, and it came in lots of colors. And what's nice about it is it fits a lot of pages. It's pretty thick. This is the Helen Stewart shawl. I don't think it's giving anything away. She does a beautiful job of outlining step by step, line by line, and this allows me to highlight with a dry erase marker where I am and then just wipe it off. So one, it means this is completely reusable, but more importantly in some ways to me is it means the pattern is completely reusable. So what I've done is I usually print out a pattern because I like paper and I like taking it with me in the project bag, and then I'll mark on that paper. And then the next time I do something, I sort of try to mark on a different side, or if it's really mucked up, I just print another copy. So this allows me to have a pristine, clean copy, but also mark exactly where I am. So just kind of a fun tool. And I think it will also be good for storage, because I store things in, normally I store things in sheet protectors, and I'll still do that. but I'll also probably have some in these in like a crate that I keep them in. So next, I want to talk a little bit about January 1st and kind of an idea I talked about a few minutes ago, which is that people are looking at their stash and looking at their homes and trying to think if there's a way to make things easier, runs more smoothly or more neatly. And there is a show on Netflix called Tidying Up with Maria Kanto. She had written a book a few years ago, I think with the same title, Tidying Up. And I remember buying it for a friend who had lots of issues with stacks, which I do too. And the show is interesting because she feels very strongly that things should, in her words, spark joy. So that you should be able to pick something up and determine if this is something that belongs in your life, if it adds value, be it clothing, be it yarn, be it books, whatever it is. And it was really interesting to sort of see her walk through that process with people and realize I have a lot of work to do in that area. Not sure exactly when or how I'm going to tackle it, but it is helpful to sort of process that and hear that. And I think a lot of us with knitting stash situations that get a little bit out of hand can relate to this idea of wanting to figure out how to have a better control over it, a neater approach to it, and more balance. And anyway, it's something you may want to check out. I don't know if I've talked about my favorite Netflix show, Mrs. Maisel, or that's, I think, Amazon Prime. Maybe that's Amazon Prime. Mrs. Maisel, which is, if you haven't seen it, Run, Don't Walk. It's really a wonderful show. And then my new obsession on Netflix is called Miss Fisher. Let's see, Miss Fisher, Female Detective. And it is a private eye Australian series set in the 1920s. It's so much fun. I have binged the whole first season. I'm on the second season. Loving, loving, loving it. The characters are wonderful. The acting's wonderful. And I think I'm an old soul, and I just love looking at the 1920s or the 1950s when Mrs. Maisel is set, and really just seeing what it was like to live in those very different times. So if you are looking for a great TV show, those would be good. In terms of films, I just saw The Green Book last night and can highly recommend that. It's a true story about the friendship between two very different men who come together and under unique circumstances and form a lifelong friendship. And it's based on a true story. And the son of one of the men was instrumental in both writing the screenplay and directing it. Very worth seeing, and I don't want to say too much about it and spoil it, but it's one of those feel-good movies that you will be glad you saw. I also saw Mary Poppins over the holidays when I went to visit my son. He, without any arm twisting at all, agreed to go with me, and we really enjoyed it. I don't think that it is as wonderful as the original Julie Andrews version, but perhaps it's because that was my childhood version. When it's easier to suspend disbelief and get totally absorbed in a movie. I think they did a great job with the remake. I don't think it's quite up to the standard of the original, but it was lots of fun and another sweet film to go see if you're looking for something fun to do. And finally, my final other kinds of joy is this new novel I'm almost done with. It's called The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gower. She is a new British author. This is very much sort of classic British lit in the style of Dickens or Jane Austen. It is a long, interesting, twisty, character-driven story, although lots happens. it deals with madams and actual mermaids and merchants and a lovely imaginative exploration of what if a mermaid was found, and what if a widowed merchant who had sent these sea captains out in search of goods to sell was given instead a mermaid. What would happen? And the premise is fanciful and unlikely, but the characters are very real and very relatable, and the writing is beautiful, but it also takes all sorts of twists and turns, so that normally I'm someone who's sort of sitting there thinking, oh, and then this, oh, and then that. And this time I really wasn't sure where she was going to go with all of this. And even at the end, it just took a zig when I thought maybe it was going to zag. And anyway, if you want a great story, a story you can get lost in, that you want to go to bed at night just so you can pick it up again and read it, this is it. The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. That's all I've got for today. Thank you, those of you who are watching. Please let me know that you're out there somehow. Subscribe, hit the like button, send me a comment. I'm not going to do Sharing the Joy until we get a few more subscribers, just because it just doesn't seem to make that much sense until there are more people watching. But I will happily add it back in when or if, that takes off. So anyway, make it a great January. Start the year off well, but most importantly, do what brings you joy. Bye.